Hello! If you're watching this video right now, it probably means you've run out of things to watch on the rest of the internet. My condolences. But since you're here, let's talk about the Woodcock-Johnson. The Woodcock-Johnson is an assessment test given in public education to determine whether or not a student qualifies for special education. The test itself is comprised of about 22 subtests, each of them a little bit different than the next, covering English, math, reading comprehension. They assess oral ability, academic achievement, knowledge and content areas, and they allow educators to get a good idea of whether or not a student is struggling in certain areas, if they have, maybe identify some learning disabilities. But we'll get into that a little bit. The test itself is comprised of several different components. The biggest one, the most impressive one, would of course be the standard test book. This fancy doodad here that props itself up. Very handy. It allows you to set the test up and administer certain subtests to the students that they can read the front while you read the back, and we'll go over a subtest in a little bit. Another very important part is the test record booklet, which you as the administrator will be filling out. Answers to the different subtests given, and then you'll use that to submit eventually the scores and be able to look over those. And then also there is a subject response booklet the student will be filling out for certain subtests, not all of them, in different capacities. Just a quick overview of one of the subtests that you might give to a student would be subtest 1, which I believe is letter-word identification. So, for instance, if you're going to give a subtest, you're going to open it up to the page that the subtest starts on. Seems pretty straightforward. Also, another awesome part of this test is it's going to give you the instructions of what you need to do as the administrator right here. And they're in English, which is a real help. So first of all, it's going to give you an administration overview, and it's going to tell you things like how to set up for the test. Like, is the room comfortable? Is the student comfortable? Is the air conditioning on? Are the lights on? Is it an appropriate time to give the test? Stuff like that. Do you have all the materials present? It even tells you in handy blue bold font what words to read and when. So for instance, for this test, you would read to yourself, if the subject pronounces a word letter by letter or syllable by syllable, instead of reading it fluently, say, and then this is what you would say to the student. First read the word silently and then say the word smoothly. So it's going to give you directions right out of the gate how to administer the test directly to the student. It also gives you scoring tips. Scoring instructions, not really tips. For instance, in this particular scoring instance, you would open the packet up as the student answers the questions, and you're going to score 1 if the student is correct, and 0 if the student gives an incorrect response. What's going to happen with this particular test is you're going to... No, that's stupid. Underneath scoring, it's going to tell you something that's going to sound a little bit weird at first, but give it some time, it'll make sense eventually, called basal and ceiling. This is how we kind of figure out where the student is in this particular test, and eventually you'll be able to compare their scores to grade level and how they're doing in this particular field of letter-word identification or any of the other subtests you're doing. So you have these two words, basal and ceiling. And you can read the instructions right here. Basal, you're going to test by complete pages until the 6th lowest numbered items administered are correct, or until you have administered the page with item 1. So that's, you're going to start at a certain point, and we'll talk about that, and then you're going to go forward or backward based on how many they get correct. The basal would be how many they've got correct, and then ceiling would be test by complete pages until the 6th highest numbered items administered are incorrect, or until you've administered through the page with item 76. So you're going to go forward and backward based on that. Again, all the answers are right here in the book for you. And so what you're going to do when you start off is you've got this handy blue chart, purple chart at the bottom here that's going to tell you, based on what grade you're at, where you should start. So I'm going to be looking at, for say, 5th to 6th grader. They say go to page 25. So I turn to page 25. The student is going to get to see a list of words. I'm going to get to see the words on my side correctly. That's how they're correctly pronounced, that's how they're correctly spelled, all that stuff. So then I'm going to follow the instructions at the top of the page. And I'm going to read this out loud, but point to the words since on the subject page and say, what is this word? Obviously, I would only say this part, what is this word? After the subject responds, say, go ahead with the others. Don't go too fast. And you can say it with any inflection that you want. So you're going to wait for the student to respond. And while they're doing that, you're going to be recording how they're doing. So 41, they say since, distance, usually, scientist, bounties. And I'm going to write 1, 1, 0, 0, depending on whether or not they got it right or wrong. If they got enough right, we're going to proceed to the next page. If they didn't, then we're going to back up and do the page right before it. And doing this process is going to give us a general range of what they're getting right, what they're getting wrong, and at the end we'll be able to see kind of where they fall grade-wise. Now that's just one example of a test. There's many different examples. Some of them will have students writing answers in the response book. For instance, they need to take math. This would be a timed test where you would need some kind of stopwatch. They might need a pencil and some paper. It all depends, but all the instructions are going to be right here in the book for each particular test. It's important that you have all the materials prepared ahead of time for the students so that they're comfortable and that you're not freaked out trying to figure out what to do. Ultimately, once everything's said and done, you'll have your test scores in hand, and what you're going to do is you're going to input the test scores into the computer program that comes with the kit. And when everything's said and done, it's going to print out a handy little sheet that tells you how well the student did. And you're going to be able to use this test booklet, which you've also made observations on their presence. Were they anxious? Were they nervous? Did they stop a lot? Did they talk a lot? And you're going to get to use this, and you're going to get to use the score sheet, and you're going to get to figure out just how well the student's doing. You're going to get to assess their stats. You'll be able to submit that to the school psychologist. Yes, psychologist. And together with the team, you're going to be able to figure out whether or not the student qualifies for special education based on the scores that they've got compared to the standards that are required to actually qualify. So there's a small crash course in the Woodcock-Johnson. If you need any more help, I'm sure there's other videos online that are probably much more detailed. But until then, good luck finding those interesting videos about cats that dance.